Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Curious Crow podcast. This is episode 17. Thanks for joining us. This one's going to be a little bit shorter this week, but it's a bit different. This week I spoke to Mark Saville from Special Effect. They're a charity that help modify game controllers for disabled people so they can carry on gaming. So without further ado, here's me speaking to Special Effect's Mark Saville. So I'm speaking to Mark from Special Effect. Hello Mark, lovely to speak to you today.
Oh, hi there, Martin.
Hello. Just a quick first question. For those who don't know about Special Effect, what is Special Effect and what do you guys do?
Yeah, we're a charity. We're effectively the video game charity. What we try to do is help people with physical disabilities to experience the kind of magic of video games. And we do that through going out to people's houses and asking them what they want to play, and then looking at what they're capable of, and then trying to find ways, matching, modifying, sort of mixing up equipment, sometimes customizing it so that they can get the very best out of their very own gaming experience.
Okay, how did Special Effect come about? I mean, how did the charity start, and what was the first device you had to come up with?
Well, yeah, I'm looking at a balloon now, which says 10 years. Congratulations. It's our 10th year.
Well, congratulations,
Thank you very much. So 10 years ago, our founder and CEO, Dr. Mick Donegan, was working in a charity that used to help people with children with communication. I think kind of Stephen Hawking, those kind of abilities and communication problems. And he was helping them in a school setting, but inevitably the parents would say, well, that's great, they can communicate and make friends in school. What are they going to do in the evenings? You know, how are they going to fill their weekends? You know, and this was a time when, you know, video games were very, very much on the rise 10 years ago. And basically Mick looked at, let's take a typical sport like football, for example. He realized that, you know, there's kids out there who couldn't play the real game of football, and they couldn't even play the online game or the virtual game either. So basically set out to try and tackle the latter of those challenges.
Okay, so what are the sort of... because obviously part of what you do is adapting controllers to specific persons with specific needs, and for specific games as well. Have you got any examples of what you've had to come up with to accommodate the needs in that way?
Yeah, well, every single person is kind of a project of one, really, because the way we do it is people come to us and say, for example, you know, I've got spinal muscular atrophy. I've got very little movement in my body and my hands anymore, and my fingers, but I used to love playing FIFA, for example. So we'll say, okay, so we'll see them and we'll see what kind of movements they've got left. It might be a tiny movement in a shoulder or a tip of a finger or you know, a blink of an eye or a chin or something like that. And we'll connect up those little movements that they can control so that they match up with a way of controlling the game. In FIFA, for example, you know, there's a mode in there that lets you operate it just using a joystick and two buttons, and so that all you need really to play FIFA in that respect is, for example, possibly a chin joystick and maybe a couple of shoulder switches, and you're up and running. So that's what we do. So it's very, very much a customized service.
That's excellent. That's excellent to hear. So how can people, you know, is there any, are you always looking for help, or do you ever need to find new plans from elsewhere? Do you get external help on that, or is it all an in-house thing?
Yeah, well, basically, no. We're fairly unique, and we don't charge for anything we do at all because wow. You know, the people we're helping are facing significant challenges themselves, and often their families and in their immediate environment. There are also significant challenges, often both personal and financial. Kind of the last thing we want to do is walk through their door and say, oh, we can help you to play games, but it's going to cost you 200 quid up front.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work. So everything we do is free. And because we find it's the best way to help. It's a crazy business model because
yes, of course.
it means that we're totally reliant on sort of the goodwill will of not only the sort of video game community, but also sort of businesses and people around the country and indeed around the world to keep our doors open. Because we offer a UK-wide service, we've been very lucky that the gamers have sort of come to us, and so many gamers have said, I can't imagine my life without playing video games. How can I help? That's the starting conversation for a lot of the help we get.
That's fantastic. What impact? I mean, obviously, I love video games, and I know lots of the listeners will as well. What impact did it have to someone who, say, for instance, if they were involved in an accident, they used to play video games, they can't. What difference does that make to their lives? Because for some people would say, oh, it's just video games. It's still tragically seen as a plaything, but surely this makes a massive impact on the lives of the people who can now go ahead and play their favourite games, right?
Oh, you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's not just for fun. I mean, we're seeing different impacts every day. It's just to see the pure joy of people who are being able to be included again, not only sort of with their friends and in their families, but also so they can start socializing online through games. They can start developing their personality again. They can bring back that sense of normality, which for many of them they'd lost. But it goes far deeper than that. I mean, if we, for example, if we help somebody who's got a progressive condition and are fairly advanced, like muscular dystrophy, to be able to give that person the ability to lose themselves in a game for like 3 or 4 hours gives a lot of respite time to parents and carers, which they otherwise didn't have before. And the impact on the people themselves, I always remember, it was quite a few years ago, we helped this guy, this teenager who was in a wheelchair, very limited movement in Wales. And his life basically was just watching whatever TV channel was put on for him. And he used to be a huge fan of Call of Duty. He used to play it all the time with his friends. And when we arrived to see him, he couldn't do a thing. But by the end of the day, we'd rigged up a couple of joysticks, one on his chin, one on the back of his wrist, a few micro switches to his fingers, a couple of switches to his feet. And through that system, he was able to, take on his mum a Call of Duty. And I always remember when we left, we said to him, "Okay, Simon, that's great. If you need any further help, if things change, just let us know." Nothing. He was absolutely engrossed in what he was doing, and that's exactly what we want. That's the kind of sort of difference we want to make.
Well, that's fantastic. If it can make an impact on somebody like that's all you really need, isn't it? And also, as you said, it's a nice break, and it gives normality, which is just a fantastic thing to do. Because I can imagine in these situations, giving normality is the biggest gift of all, isn't it? Right?
It is, and also there's. What I've been talking about so far is people with perhaps severe disabilities, but we're seeing people who've had perhaps they've just lost a thumb,
right? Yeah,
or perhaps have got skin conditions that make it very difficult for them to touch keyboard or a console or controller, and they're just desperate to join in and be normal and be part of life. So it extends right across the gamut of disabilities, and also ages as well. We've seen several people in their 60s and 70s who've maybe had stroke, who just want to join in with their nieces and nephews and play with them and get fun and enjoyment with them. So as I say, every day there's something new.
And how is the games industry as a whole? With you, I mean, I'm sure most people are going to be very receptive. I know IGN, particularly in the UK, have done a lot of fundraising for you. I know lots of other companies have been involved. But how does the industry receive you guys? I'm sure it's fabulous.
We've been very lucky to have had a lot of incredibly valuable support from companies right across the games industry. Obviously, without their support, we wouldn't still be here today. We've just finished a major fundraising weekend where we've asked game developers and companies to just give us one day's worth of revenue from a game or a couple of big games, and that's raised over £300,000 for us over one weekend. which is incredible, and it's knocked us off our feet. Just the sheer scale of that support we're getting. So it's so important that we've got that rapport with the industry, because what we don't want to be seen as is an organisation, excuse me, an organisation that sort of insists that everybody's games should be accessible, because reality isn't like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So how can people get involved to help or donate, or, you've been saying that people have been helping create devices and stuff. How can people get in touch with you if they can help in any way?
Right. Well, there's the website, www.specialeffect.org.uk. And there's also basically anything fun that you'd want to do. We'd absolutely love to hear about it. We've had some wonderful fundraisers this year. From people, sort of cutting off their hair that they've been growing for 10 years, through to people who run sort of huge gaming marathons over weekends. In fact, we've got next February, 23rd, 25th, is our Game Blast weekend. It's kind of children in need for gamers. We just say, look, play the games you love to play over that weekend and set yourself a challenge like, 12 hours or something like that, 24 hours, and get sponsored to do it. And it's great because it's a real opportunity for gamers themselves to feel really valuable in helping people who maybe don't have the opportunities to play like they do.
And all that information is at specialeffect.org. Thank you so much for speaking to me today, Mark.
No problem at all. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. So there you go, Mark from Special Effect there. If you can help out Special Effect, you can visit their website, www.specialeffect.org. Maybe you want to do a gaming marathon, maybe you want to help out, or you're into maybe robotics, electronics, maybe you can help these guys out. Please do visit their website. Anyway, if you'd like to buy games through Kingwin, you can get discounts on great games, and we get a little bit of money as well. Check the affiliate link in the description box below. That's it from this week. You can find us on the Apple Podcast app, and you can also find us on SoundCloud and on YouTube. Normal service will be resumed next week, but for now, we'll see you later. Bye-bye!